In the damp hollows of Appalachia, where fog clings to the cabins like a wet blanket, families live for generations without a single can of mold spray, not a speck of black mold, not one whiff of mildew. And they never bought Tilex or mold armor because those products didn't exist. Their secret cost $3 and killed mold forever. I'm going to show you exactly how they did it, and why the stuff you're spraying on your bathroom walls right now is actually making the problem worse. By the end of this video, you'll never buy a commercial mold spray again. But if you leave before the full recipe, you risk wasting time and money on products that only bleach the surface while the mold keeps eating your house from the inside out. You see, mold isn't just a stain. It's a living organism with a root system called hyphae that drills deep into drywall, grout, and wood grain. When you blast a bleach-based spray onto a patch of black mold, the surface dies instantly. The visible misery disappears, but the roots, they survive. They retreat, pulling deeper into the material, and within days they sprout right back because the moisture that nourished them never left. It's like mowing a weed but leaving the taproot intact. The mold laughs. It's been doing this for 300 million years. Bleach is just a temporary blindfold. That's why your bathroom keeps reblooming after every scrubbing session. The chemistry is brutal. Bleach is mostly water and sodium hypochlorite, which evaporates quickly, leaving a damp, slightly salty residue that actually provides minerals for new spores. You're not preventing regrowth, you're fertilizing the next generation. Mold armor and Tilex first appeared on store shelves in the early 1970s, part of the post-war explosion of household chemicals that promised quick fixes for every problem. Before that, nobody sprayed mold. They dealt with it using basic chemistry that interrupted the organism's life cycle. Today, the mold remediation industry in the United States is a $13.3 billion business. They want you to believe you need their services and their patented formulas. But here's the uncomfortable truth most companies won't say. Killing mold permanently is cheaper than a cup of coffee if you understand one simple principle. Remove the moisture, alter the environment, and attack the roots, not just the bloom. The reason the industry feels compelled to hide this is simple. If every homeowner knew a $3 fix existed, those billions would evaporate overnight. Appalachian families lived in wooden cabins tucked deep into hollows where the humidity rarely dips below 70% year-round. These structures, built with local timber and sealed with nothing more than linseed oil, should have been mold paradise. Damp wood, poor ventilation, the warm breath of wood stoves creating condensation on every surface. Yet when you walk into those old homesteads, some still standing after 100 years, you notice something strange. No musty smell, no black spotting on the beams, no fuzzy white patches wedged in the corners, just the scent of cedar and clean air. How did they pull this off without a single aerosol can? Because they had a ritual, a maintenance routine passed from grandmother to grandchild, that combined 3 ordinary ingredients you can buy right now at any grocery store and pharmacy. This ritual attacked mold where it lives, in the microscopic root network that grows inside the material itself. And the beauty of the system is that it used materials already on hand, bought for pennies at the general store, long before any chemical company tried to patent a solution. White vinegar is not just salad dressing. Distilled white vinegar at 5% acetic acid is a potent mold killer, and the EPA's indoor air quality research confirms it destroys 82% of the most common household mold species. The key is how you apply it. You don't dilute it. You don't spray and wipe immediately. You pour undiluted vinegar into a spray bottle, saturate the affected surface until it's dripping, and let it sit for at least 1 hour. The acidity penetrates the porous material, dissolving the cell walls of fungal hyphae and rendering them unable to absorb nutrients. After an hour, scrub gently with a stiff brush, then wipe away the residue with a dry cloth. Do not rinse with water. That only reintroduces moisture. The vinegar smell dissipates in a few hours, leaving behind a surface that won't feed mold for weeks. The acetic acid works because it protonates the enzymes the hyphae need to digest cellulose, essentially starving them to death. It's a food-grade product that's safe around your kids, compared to the warning labels on commercial sprays that read like a hazardous waste manifest. But here's the mistake most people make. They mix vinegar with baking soda and watch it fizz, thinking the chemical reaction is doing something brilliant. It's not. The fizz is just carbon dioxide escaping, neutralizing the acidity and turning the liquid into salty water with no antifungal punch. Vinegar and baking soda are both useful against mold, but never together. Use vinegar alone for killing existing growth. The natural acidic environment it creates also makes it harder for spores to germinate later. This was the first line of defense in those Appalachian cabins. Every spring, after the winter thaw, they'd wipe down walls and beams with straight vinegar, paying special attention to joints and corners where moisture collects. No fancy spray pattern, just an old rag and a jug. The ritual became as automatic as morning coffee, a simple wipe that protected the wood for an entire year. The second weapon in the Appalachian arsenal is hydrogen peroxide. the 3% solution you find in a brown bottle for $1.50 at any pharmacy. Unlike bleach, which mostly whitens, hydrogen peroxide releases extra oxygen molecules when it contacts organic matter. This oxygen attacks the cell walls of mold, and the foaming action physically lifts the stubborn biofilm from deep within pores, places a rag can't reach. But here's where the Appalachians added a clever twist. After the peroxide treatment dried, they dust the surface with baking soda. Not mixed, never mixed. The baking soda alters the pH of the material, jacking it up to a level that makes germination impossible for mold spores. It's a 1-2 punch. The peroxide kills what's already there. The baking soda ensures nothing new can start. And because peroxide breaks down into water and oxygen, it leaves zero toxic residue. A child could lick the wall afterward, though I wouldn't recommend it, and be perfectly safe. You can buy a 16-ounce bottle for under $2, making it one of the cheapest antifungals on the planet. It's also safe around children and pets once it dries, breaking down into water and oxygen. No toxic residue means no fumes to ventilate, no gloves needed after application, though I'd still recommend them while handling. The Appalachian approach was pragmatic. Use what the general store had. Peroxide was a first aid staple, and baking soda sat in every kitchen for biscuits and cleaning. Why buy specialized chemicals when the materials already on your shelf did the job more effectively? This resourcefulness is exactly what we've lost in the age of branded sprays. In those mountains, a bottle of peroxide doubled as wound cleaner and mold killer, a perfect example of Yankee thrift. Tea tree oil contains a compound called terpenen 4-ol that literally dissolves the cell membranes of mold on contact. The International Journal of Food Microbiology has documented its antifungal activity against a wide range of species. For a home spray, you mix 1 teaspoon of tea tree oil with 1 cup of water in a glass spray bottle. Shake it until the oil emulsifies, then mist the problem area. This spray has a strong smell, medicinal, almost piney, but that odor fades, and it leaves behind a very thin antimicrobial residue that continues to repel mold for days. The Appalachian mountain folk didn't have tea tree oil historically, but they used similar plant-based resins from local evergreens, such as pine pitch or cedar sap. Today, we can use the concentrated oil for a fraction of the price. It's like distilling the forest's own defense system into a tiny bottle. This isn't a daily spritz. It's a targeted treatment for stubborn mold in bathrooms, windowsills, or on fabrics. Spray it on, let it sit for 30 minutes, then blot dry. Do not rinse. The film it leaves behind is clear and slightly waterproof, making it ideal for grout lines and caulk that stay damp. A small bottle of tea tree oil costs around $3 and will last you months because you're only using a tiny amount per batch. That's the economics that big companies don't want you to realize. Their push-button convenience comes at a markup that makes Wall Street blush. If you hold that bottle of mold armor now, calculate the cost per ounce against these DIY options. The numbers will stun you. A typical mold spray might cost $8 for a quart, while a gallon of vinegar is $2.50, and you can make multiple batches. When mold has soaked deep into raw wood, like an untreated floorboard or a beam, surface sprays won't cut it. The Appalachian solution was a poultice. Mix baking soda with just enough water to form a thick paste, spread it over the moldy area, and cover with plastic wrap overnight. The baking soda draws moisture out of the wood, and its alkalinity poisons the hyphae network. In the morning, you scrape off the dried paste, and the wood is bone dry and hostile to future growth. For severe infestations, they'd repeat the process with hydrogen peroxide first, letting it foam into the wood grain before applying the poultice. No sanding, no replacement, no calling a remediation company, just patience and a 3-cent ingredient. The process mimics a long, slow, salt and alkaline therapy that modern chemists would envy. Killing mold is only half the battle. The real secret to permanent mold control is creating an environment where spores simply can't colonize. The Appalachian families understood that the forest wanted to reclaim their homes. Every breeze carried millions of spores. Their goal wasn't to kill every spore, that's impossible, but to make their cabins profoundly inhospitable. They did this with 5 low-cost strategies that are just as relevant in a modern apartment as in a log cabin, and each one costs pennies to implement. Strategy 1, baking soda surface treatment. After cleaning any surface, whether wood, drywall, or tile, wipe it down with a solution of baking soda dissolved in water. 1 tablespoon of baking soda per cup of warm water. This isn't a cleaner, it's a pH adjuster. Mold prefers a slightly acidic environment, around pH 5 to 6. Baking soda pushes surfaces up to pH 8 or 9, which interrupts the enzyme function that spores use to germinate. In those mountain cabins, women would dust baking soda into the cracks of floorboards and leave it there. It absorbed humidity, deodorized the space, and made the wood alkaline. Every spring cleaning, they'd sweep it out, scrub with vinegar, and then reapply. The cycle was relentless, and it worked for a century. Over time, the wood itself became slightly alkaline in its outer layer, like seasoning a cast iron pan. The beauty of baking soda is that it doesn't evaporate or degrade. It stays as a microscopic crystalline layer, continuously neutralizing acids that form from decaying organic matter. This means mold spores that land on a baking soda treated surface find themselves in a desert of high pH, unable to activate their spore coats. It's passive defense at its finest. You can treat wooden furniture, closet walls, even the insides of shoes. A box of baking soda costs less than $1 and can treat an entire room. Compare that to a single bottle of mold-resistant primer. You see why the industry hates this knowledge. An entire room's defense costs less than a candy bar. Strategy 2, Appalachian cross-ventilation. Those cabins were built with opposing windows, often at different heights, to create a convection current. Even on still days, the subtle temperature difference between the sunny side and the shaded side pulled a slow, continuous draft through the house. The air exchanged itself completely several times a day without any electricity. In a modern home, you can replicate this by opening windows on opposite walls for just 15 minutes each morning, especially in bathrooms after a shower. The goal is to flush the humid, spore-laden air and replace it with fresh, drier air. A simple box fan in a window facing outward can accelerate this, costing nothing in chemicals and almost nothing in electricity. The key is to create a pressure differential. Open a window slightly on the windward side and another on the leeward side, and nature does the work. The Appalachian folks monitored humidity by watching their salt. If the salt in the salt pig clumped, the air was too damp. Today, we have a digital hygrometer for $5. Keep indoor humidity below 50%. If it creeps above, open windows or run a dehumidifier. A secondhand unit from a thrift store works fine. Mold can't sprout when the relative humidity stays under 55% consistently. This simple fact is worth more than $1,000 in remediation fees. But the modern home, sealed tight with vapor barriers and synthetic materials, often traps moisture. That's why you need active ventilation. The Appalachian cabins, despite their lack of insulation, breathed. They leaked air, and that was their greatest defense. Your house likely doesn't leak enough, so make it breathe intentionally. Use a small fan on a timer for a few hours a day if needed, and you'll see moisture problems vanish. Strategy 3. Cedar blocks and closets and drawers. Eastern red cedar contains natural oils called thujaplicans that are powerfully antifungal and insect repellent. Appalachian families would split cedar logs into small blocks, sand them smooth, and place them in clothing chests, pantry shelves, and bathroom corners. Over time, the oils evaporate slowly, creating a microclimate that mold detests. You can buy cedar blocks or cedar oil sachets online for a few dollars, or if you have access to scrap cedar, make your own. Every 6 months, sand the surface to release fresh oils. This isn't just about smell. It's a passive chemical shield that costs nothing to maintain after the initial setup. The cedar also imparts a warm, woody aroma that no synthetic freshener can match. In those old cabins, you'd often find cedar shavings mixed with dried lavender inside pillowcases tucked into roof beams. The lavender repelled moths, the cedar suppressed mold, and the fragrance marked a home that was alive with the forest's own chemistry, not synthetic cover-ups. You can replicate this by drilling small holes in a block of cedar, inserting a few drops of tea tree oil, and placing it in a damp corner. The evaporation works in tandem. Cedar oils, plus tea tree terpenes, create an antifungal zone with a radius of several feet. It's crazy that we swap this elegant, fragrant solution for plastic dehumidifiers and chemical blocks that off-gas questionable fumes. Strategy 4, moisture absorbers. The mountain folk use dried corn cobs or rice and cloth bags hung in damp areas. Today, silica gel packets, the same ones that come with electronics, are super effective and reusable. Collect them from shoe boxes and product packaging, or buy a bulk bag of silica gel beads for a few dollars. Place them in small fabric pouches and hang them in closets, under sinks, and behind furniture against exterior walls. Once saturated, dry them in the sun or in a low oven to recharge. A pound of silica gel can absorb its weight in moisture over several cycles. That's far cheaper and less toxic than chemical dehumidifying tubs. Plus, you can reuse them indefinitely, reducing waste. Strategy 5. Build a passive dehumidifier for enclosed spaces. Take a large plastic container, fill the bottom with rock salt or calcium chloride, sold as ice melt, and place a smaller container inside to collect water. Cover with a breathable cloth. The salt pulls moisture from the air and the water drips into the inner container. For a bathroom or basement, this works continuously for weeks, requiring only a drain and refill. It cost maybe $2 to build. No electricity, no noise. The Appalachian approach was a bucket of ashes from the hearth. Ashes are highly absorbent and alkaline, but salt works just as well. Place one in every room with a moisture problem, and you'll see the difference in days. The ambient humidity drops just enough to stop spore germination, all powered by chemistry, not a cord. So what was the exact routine that kept those cabins mold-free for a century? It wasn't one spray, it was a layered system, a kind of slow medicine for the house. You start by killing any existing mold with undiluted white vinegar, saturating the area and leaving it for an hour. If the mold is black and stubborn, you follow with hydrogen peroxide, letting it foam into the pores. Then, and this is the critical part most people forget, once the surface is dry, you treat it with a baking soda paste or dusting to lock the pH high. Then you place cedar blocks in key corners to maintain a local antifungal atmosphere, and you set up a passive moisture absorber nearby to keep humidity below 55%. This entire kit costs $3, the price of a small jug of vinegar, a bottle of peroxide, a box of baking soda, and a piece of cedar. Not 300, not 3,000, 3, and it never stops working. You're not buying a product, you're adopting a habit that your grandparents would recognize instantly. Here's the full recipe, ready in 5 minutes. You'll need one spray bottle with undiluted white vinegar, another spray bottle with 3% hydrogen peroxide, a box of baking soda, and optionally a small bottle of tea tree oil if you want the extra strength. Step 1. Spray the moldy area with vinegar until dripping wet. Let it sit 1 full hour. Step 2. Spray the same area with hydrogen peroxide. Watch it foam and let it dry naturally. Step 3. Once dry, dust the area with baking soda, leaving a thin white layer. This raises pH and absorbs residual moisture. For ongoing protection, mix a teaspoon of tea tree oil into a cup of water and mist the surface once a week. That's it. The whole process takes less than 10 minutes of active work, and you can do it while you do other chores. No protective gear beyond gloves, no masks, no waiting for rooms to air out. In 2026, a gallon of store-brand white vinegar costs around $2.50. That's enough to treat an entire bathroom. A 16-ounce bottle of hydrogen peroxide is $1.50. A 1-pound box of baking soda is 99 cents. A 2-ounce bottle of tea tree oil is $3, though you need only a few drops. Add a couple of spray bottles from the dollar store, and your total outlay is under $7. But if you already have spray bottles, the consumable ingredients come to about $3 per treatment. Compare that to mold armor at $8 a bottle that lasts maybe 2 sessions before running out, and you have to keep buying it because it doesn't stop the recurrence. The Appalachian fix is not only cheaper, it's permanent. Over a year, a family could save hundreds of dollars that would otherwise go into a chemical company's pocket. Store the vinegar and peroxide in their original containers, away from direct sunlight. The baking soda should stay dry. Humidity makes it clump, but doesn't ruin it. The tea tree oil will last years. Reapply the baking soda dusting every couple of months, or after heavy cleaning that washes away the alkaline layer. The cedar blocks need sanding every 6 months to refresh the oils. The moisture absorber you refill when full. This is a set-it-and-forget-it system. Once you establish the pH barrier and low humidity, mold spores essentially starve and never establish a foothold. The routine becomes as automatic as changing a furnace filter, but far cheaper. Let's apply this to a typical bathroom. After your morning shower, spray the grout lines and corners with vinegar and let it sit while you get dressed. Then hit it with peroxide while you brush your teeth. By the time you're done, the peroxide has dried. Dust baking soda into the grout with an old makeup brush. Leave it. Once a week, do the tea tree light mist, crack the window or run the fan. Place a small cedar block on the windowsill and a silica pouch behind the toilet. Within 2 weeks, any recurring pink mildew will be gone, and the black mold never returns. This routine takes 2 minutes a day and costs maybe 20 cents a month. That's the whole secret. Hygiene that works with the physics of your home, not against it. If you're facing a major outbreak, say a basement wall with fuzzy white mycelium spreading across the concrete, don't panic. Start with the vinegar soak, double the saturation, and let it sit 2 hours. Then use a pump sprayer with hydrogen peroxide. After drying, make a thick baking soda paste and trowel it on, covering with plastic overnight. Next morning, scrape off and repeat if necessary. For porous wood, you might need 2 cycles. But the principle remains the same. Kill roots with acid and oxygen, then fortify with pH. This method saved an entire mountain cabin that had been shuttered for 10 years. No joke. Within a week, the musty smell vanished and new growth never returned. The homeowner that had been quoted thousands called it a miracle in a box of baking soda. The reason this works permanently is that you're not just killing a colony, you're altering the habitat. Bleach kills the visible part and then evaporates, leaving the surface wet and slightly acidic. Perfect for new spores. The Appalachian system leaves a surface that is dry, moisture absorber, alkaline, baking soda, and coated with antifungal residues, tea tree and cedar. Even if a spore lands, it cannot germinate. The pH barrier doesn't wash away with humidity. In fact, baking soda absorbs moisture and continues to react, creating a microscopic alkaline film that self-renews as long as baking soda remains. It's a continuous defense that works day and night. Imagine a guard that never sleeps, powered by simple chemistry. Think of it like a garden. If you want to prevent weeds, you don't pluck them one by one, you change the soil, The Appalachian grandmothers understood this metaphor literally. They treated their cabins like soil, amend it to be alkaline, dry, and rich in natural antimicrobials. Mold is a weed of the indoor ecosystem. By making the habitat unsuitable, they eliminated the problem at its source. Modern chemistry tries to fight the weed endlessly. The old way simply starves it. That's why it's a fix that lasts forever, not a temporary cover-up. You're not battling mold. You're outsmarting it at a fundamental level. About 15 years ago, a family inherited a log cabin in West Virginia that had been locked up for decades. Black mold climbed the walls, the floorboards were spongy, and the air was thick with spores. A remediation company quoted over $40,000. Instead, the family's elderly neighbor taught them the exact methods I've described. They spent a weekend applying vinegar, peroxide, baking soda, and cedar. The mold died, the wood dried and hardened, and the cabin became breathable again. Total cost, $30 in supplies, mostly to replace the spray bottles. That cabin now stands as a vacation rental with zero mold issues, and every guest comments on how fresh it smells. No harsh chemicals, no ozone generators, just old-fashioned know-how. Every time you buy a bottle of mold spray, you're voting for a system that keeps you dependent. The industry bets you won't learn that a $3 solution exists. But now you know. You can walk into a supermarket, pick up vinegar, peroxide, baking soda, and maybe a cedar block, and reclaim your home from mold forever without ever buying another branded chemical. The Appalachian families didn't need a YouTube video. They had the wisdom passed down. Now you have it too. Next, you might want to check out how they kept their food fresh without refrigeration. But that's a story for another video.